It is that time of year. Everyone is getting back into the gyms, and we know that during January, February, March, the beginning part of that year, the gym is always slammed. The equipment isn't always available. Sometimes you walk in and you get so overwhelmed you just don't know what to do at the gym. I've definitely had that problem before, and I know that sometimes it's nice to have a guide. It's nice to have a workout already planned, whether you have 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or a full hour, and you can really sink your teeth into a workout. Introducing Mossa On Demand. That is Mossa. Mossa On Demand is a subscription-based fitness platform. It is only $9.99 per month, and you can get things like kickboxing, you can get strength training, you can get aerobic dance classes, you can get stretching, mindfulness, recovery, foam rolling, anything that you need. And also, you don't need equipment for a lot of these workouts. And sometimes when you're in the gym and you want to get a little more strength training, but you don't know exactly what to do, but you don't want to sign up for a full gym, you really don't know what you're doing, but you want that weight training aspect, that is something I think Mossa On Demand has done really well. With the code HotterThanHealth30, you can get 30 extra days for free after your 14-day trial. Again, that is code HotterThanHealth30, and you can get 44 days for free. After that, a subscription is only $9.99 per month, and you can, again, have workouts 10, 30, 60 minutes. You're going to love it. They have over 300 amazing workouts, and all you have to do is go to mossaondemand.net, use the code HotterThanHealth30, give it a try, fueled by music, coaches, motivation, and again, podcast listeners get 30 days for free on top of an already 14-day trial with a coupon code. So you'll get a reminder letting you know that it'll be $9.99 per month, and then you're good to go. You have your entire routine already set, and you have your habits built. Again, that is mossaondemand.net. Use the code HotterThanHealth30 and enjoy. Welcome to the Hotter Than Health podcast, a podcast and resource for those looking to expand and elevate their lives. Each week, we will bring you provocative topics, engaging interviews, and some of the biggest names in health and wellness to answer your burning questions. Each episode, you will leave with tangible tips and takeaways so that you can immediately begin to elevate and optimize your life.
So many times people say my hormones are out of balance, and I'm like, no, it's not your hormones. Your hormones are a symptom of your body trying to tell you something's out of balance.
Hello. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. We have a good one today. It's a deep dive into hormones and animal protein, blood sugar, cravings. We talk about detox pathways. We talk about birth control. I don't know if I already said that, but this is a hormone-heavy episode, and I think you all will really like it. I've noticed that this audience, we love the science, we love the facts, we want the data, but we want to know how to implement it into our day-to-day life. And sometimes you have a conversation or you hear a podcast episode, or maybe you're following an account and you hear a piece of advice or a quote, a saying, something that resonates, something that maybe you've seen a bunch of times, but it never really resonated with you and it just got you at the right time, maybe. I think that there are different pieces of that type of thing happening throughout this episode. I think that you will recognize several different opportunities that you may have in your day-to-day to change some things up, to treat yourself differently, to observe yourself differently. And that's really what this conversation is all about. It is about figuring out your own personal hormones based on what your body is telling you. Without further ado, let me introduce to you our guest today. Today we have Meg Richichi. She is a virtual integrative women's health practitioner. She is demystifying PCOS, infertility, and the hormonal roller coaster of life. If you want to find her on Instagram, she is the Hormone Lifestyle Zone on Instagram. And I did a poll several months ago asking for some of your favorite people that you follow who you actually trust on social media, and someone sent me this page, and Meg and I had a kind of a pre-qualifying conversation before we recorded, and it, she just is such a wealth of knowledge, and she's easy to speak to. We are definitely going to be doing a part 2 for this, and I'm not sure exactly when we're going to record it, but what I would love to do is use Meg as a resource for you all. What questions do you still have after this episode? Since we touch on so many different facets of hormones in this episode, I'd love to hear where you think that we either missed the mark or want to hear more about. Oh, we touched on birth control and I want to hear more about IUDs. Oh, we talked about X, Y, and Z or weight and BMI, but I want to talk more about intermittent fasting and detoxing, constipation. We talk a little bit about gut health, but could we do more? Yes. Now, if you want to send in your feedback or your questions or what you really liked about this episode to me, you can send it on Hotter Than Health Podcast on Instagram, or you can, of course, write a review on Apple Podcast. If this is your first time listening, check out Apple Podcasts. Make sure you are following and subscribed so that you never miss an episode. Before we get into today's episode, quick plug that the Hotter Than Health tote bags, they are live. They are on the website. You can go to elizagwellness.com and pick up your own Hotter Than Health tote bag, and I will ship it out to you ASAP, and maybe you will even get a little treat in the bag. They're amazing. The produce bag, it fits, I don't know, 10 heads of broccoli. It fits an entire grocery haul for me, and then maybe I hold the bread or the eggs, something you don't want to crush inside a bag. But for all of your grocery shopping, farmers market needs, maybe you're going to a coffee shop, you'll love this bag. Go to elizagwellness.com. They're so cute. You will love them. All right. You've waited long enough. I think you all will absolutely love this episode. I can't wait to hear from you all on your thoughts. But without further ado, let me introduce to you Meg Richichi to the Hotter Than Health podcast.
I don't chase symptoms. I take a deep dive into the rootiest causes. And I use that term rootiest because what people think are root causes for hormonal issues, you've got to take a step back even further.
Give an example of that.
Give an example. So a really good example of, you can use this. Did your mother smoke during pregnancy? How did that impact your overall health? What chemicals were you exposed to in utero? We live in it, I've probably said this repeatedly, but I think it's worth saying every time. The environmental working group has done a few studies where they've drawn blood on 10 umbilical cords from around the country. I think they got the blood from the Red Cross. And they found, this is back in like 2009, 2011, it could have been 2005. They found over 260 environmental toxins. So that means that mommy unintentionally is passing this along to her baby during utero development. Well, how is that impacting a child? So when I look at, excuse me, for example, when I'm working with women that have polycystic ovarian syndrome, did their moms have PCOS? They didn't even know their mothers had PCOS. Moms had high levels of androgens. So they were impacted by androgens during their fetal development, which disrupted their hormone signaling and insulin signaling in utero.
Can we talk about PCOS? You mentioned polycystic ovarian syndrome.
That's my jam.
It's the thing is that I think that every single person who has any type of health and wellness podcast has had an episode on PCOS, and we've touched on it so many times, but we haven't gotten super in depth. What is your in-depth understanding of PCOS, and what are the most common symptoms that you see? Because I know women and friends who have gone to 5, 6, 7 different doctors, and they always just say, oh, birth control is the answer. Birth control is the answer. Can you talk to that?
Absolutely. PCOS is kind of my jam. And I've been in practice for 27 years. And my background started, I went to school for acupuncture long time ago. Uh, I went to school for acupuncture about 30 years ago
Wow.
and have been practicing for 27 years. And 5 years into my practice, and I was in New York City at that time, I noticed, and I was getting referrals from a lot of personal trainers, from different dance companies, because I had a circle of friends that were dancers and physical personal trainers. And I was working with these women, and so many of them, or the women that I was working with, unexplained infertility. I failed IVF, miscarriages. So I was, just doing acupuncture. Maybe I knew a little bit about nutrition at that time and herbs. And I was like, oh, these women are getting pregnant and they're holding pregnancy and they're going to full term. I said, wow, that's interesting. But I started noticing, and I'm editing a lot out, a really significant pattern.
Mm.
Many women that were having difficulty getting pregnant, highly stressed, eating on the go, skipping meals, gut issues, constipation, diarrhea, gas bloat,
Working out like crazy.
working out like crazy, crazy people, and difficulty getting pregnant. And part of another thing that was on, and I'll go into it in a little more depth, what we call PCOS. And I'll explain more in just a moment. I'm going to put that on a shelf. So these women that had quote unquote PCOS, but were not diagnosed with PCOS at that time. So anyway, what I realized is like, wow, all these women, I started seeing these women that were having all these lifestyle markers. If they didn't start making changes in their diet, the way they were eating, the way they were thinking, the way they were taking care of themselves, the way they were being good mothers to themselves, I'm going to preface that. My group of women that were women that were not trying to get pregnant. I had my fertility group and my non-fertility group. They both shared the same lifestyle markers. And I realized the ones that were not trying to get pregnant, that if they kept on that path, they'd be back in my office in a few years. And that's exactly what had happened. So I started focusing more about 5 years into practice. I said, I need to understand hormones, hormone signaling better. I need to understand nutrition from a more functional perspective and combining that with an Eastern perspective. Mm-hmm. So what I've said, that stress, modern day stress, has become an unintentional form of birth control for women.
That I have not heard it put like that. Yeah. Well, and I think that it's fair to even mention stress doesn't always have to be, you lost your job or something traumatic happened. It can just be constant, nonstop stimulation. It's screen time. It's little stressors.
It's the little stressors. It's not getting enough sleep. Women, 70% of men's testosterone is produced in the testicles. 30% is produced in the what is the expression? 3% for men is produced in the adrenal glands. So many of women's hormones are set off in the adrenal glands. So you have to look at testosterone and cortisol and estrogen. And it's not just the ovaries, but your adrenal glands play a major role in your hormones. Mm-hmm. So when you're really taxed, you're going to get elevation of cortisol. Well, guess what? The precursor to cortisol is progesterone. Estrogen and testosterone, very important at the first half of the cycle. Estrogen leading up to ovulation. Second half of the cycle, corpus luteum signaling progesterone, which is also some is produced by your adrenal glands. So this progesterone meets estrogen to balance it, to potentially hold a pregnancy, but to keep estrogen in check. And what I say, estrogen is a party girl. She's very dramatic. Mm-hmm. So if progesterone, and I'm going to explain what happens to progesterone when you're under stress, progesterone is like the designated driver. It keeps her in check because she's a drama queen. She likes to bleed. She likes to have polyps. She likes fibroids. She likes everyone to know she's present in the room. And progesterone comes along and says, baby girl, I'm taking you home. Balances her out. So when women have PMS, that means that progesterone, which I said a moment ago, is a precursor to cortisol. So it gets shunted away from your cycle down stress pathways.
Oh,
And what causes that? Skipping meals, your blood sugar dips and dives. Your body can't differentiate between the tiger running after you in the jungle and you skipping a meal and having a pack of Starbursts.
yeah.
These are real clients, or
Oh, yeah.
Twizzles. Yeah. So, or if you're under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So when women do not have PMS, and we will touch on PCOS because that is such a passion of mine, because it just falls through the cracks. You know, when your hormones are balanced, when you don't have PCOS, you're not supposed to have PCOS. It is the norm in this country. It is not normal.
You mean
And
PMS?
PMS, you see what's happening?
I know it. I know it.
And actually, PCOS is, I think PCOS, we'll get into that. I feel a lot of what's going on in our world is amplifying and
Yeah.
triggering a lot of PCOS.
But there
Getting back
is,
to
but there is
PMS.
something to say about that it's not normal. It's just common. There's a big difference.
Yes. And a lot of things that we now see as being common and the norm was not acceptable a few years ago in terms of our health. So you're not supposed to have PMS. You're not supposed to have tender breasts, gas and bloat, constipation, feeling cranky. Progesterone is very calming and soothing. Estrogen is a beautiful hormone. So I'm actually talking about women that have a natural cycle. I'm not talking about women that are on the pill, because women that are on the pill don't have that ebb and flow. And I just want to share a story, and I think I've shared this before. When I was in school for acupuncture, I was working full time. It's taking my biosciences, doing courses on the weekend. That was when I would do my clinic. And I remember I got up on a Saturday morning and I went to the bathroom and I went, oh, I have my period. And I went, oh my God, I have no cramps. I don't feel, my energy was great. And I went, wow, I'm in balance. I remember that day. That's how you're supposed to feel. And maybe around the time of your bleed, you slow it down a little. Stretch. Don't go work out at the gym, start lifting weights when you're bleeding. Give yourself permission to just be. So I love right now in my practice, and I work with women from the age of like 15, 16 to 70s, but a lot of women that I work with, they're in their 20s and their teens. And I have to say, I love the women that are coming to see me. I have a lot of women in their 20s, mid 20s, because they're like, I want to figure out what's going on with my hormones. And part of it for a lot of these women is like, they're like, I don't feel good on the pill.
Yeah.
I've been on the pill for 10 years. I'm 25 years old. I feel flat.
I think we should address some of what people think are the root causes of PCOS, and then get into birth control, because those two definitely will go hand in hand.
Well, a lot of, it's very interesting. A lot of what I discuss or I talk about with PCOS, your diet, making sure you have a balanced diet, and I'll go into that. Your blood sugar, when it even and balanced. This influences your cycle. So a lot of things that I recommend for PCOS are the same things that I recommend with PMS, balancing the hormones. There was a doctor, Dr. Catherine Dalton, and she was very popular in the 50s and 60s. She was like the PMS researcher, pioneer of research. And what she discovered is that in her studies, that if she had these young women, young gals, have frequent meals that were balanced, they stopped having PMS. Their progesterone wasn't being shunted down those stress pathways. So how you eat has a major influence. How we detox, how we methylate hormones. But so much can be regulated with our diet and lifestyle. What I see with PCOS, and it comes in all shapes and sizes, classic PCOS or symptoms, women having a cycle that is longer than 35 days. So it could be 35 days, 45 days, 60 days, once a year, twice a year. They're not ovulating. And what I see with many of these women, and it varies, classic symptoms. I'll have women that have acne, just can't get rid of it. They've
Like
been on
cystic all over the
Accutane.
chin, all
Well,
over.
yes, and varying degrees, and it can be on their back and it can be on their chest. They may experience some thinning of their, head hair. They may find that they've got hair on their chin. 95% of the women with PCOS have gut issues. They have gas, bloat, digestive issues, constipation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that plays a major role in their hormones. So you can have, I see, and difficulty losing weight. There's insulin resistance. Precursor to that is leptin resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And elevated androgens. So the definition, or one way of describing PCOS, and there are a variety, is that women with PCOS have elevated androgens. These androgens are produced because these women have a form of insulin resistance, doesn't always show up in their blood test. The elevation of insulin signals to the ovaries to produce excess androgens. These androgens interfere with a woman's ability to ovulate, so she doesn't ovulate.
Okay. And does that have to correlate? Because I know a little bit about androgens, definitely not as much as I should, but when it comes to that, is that correlated with when we see people being able to lose weight almost in any other area of their body except for their midsection? Because I feel like so many women who struggle with imbalanced hormones talk about just that one area of their body. Cortisol levels. Okay, so not to do with androgens. I mean, it's all correlated.
In my world, I feel that if your blood sugar is dipping and diving, that's a stressor on the body. So when we see a lot of belly fat, I think cortisol.
Okay.
And a lot of people, that's where people, carry it.
Yeah. Agreed.
But that has a lot to do with diet.
When we're talking about balanced meals, because we talked about this earlier, what are your thoughts with animal proteins with diet, lifestyle? And because I'm here to learn about the absolute best way to naturally handle and understand hormones. Does that mean animal proteins are the best source? Can you talk about that a little?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the struggle and the challenge today is that, and in my world, and in my clinical practice of working with thousands of women, a plant-based diet is very high in carbs. So even if you're eating quinoa with beans, you would have to eat an incredible amount of beans and quinoa to get that complete, quinoa is has that complete amino acid profile. But if you're combining rice with beans, you have to consume a massive amount of beans. So, and rice to be equivalent to what would be maybe 4 ounces of protein like chicken or beef, you'd have to, and which would be maybe, I'm going to make this up, like 300 calories. To get the same profile of protein, you'd have to eat about 700 calories, 650, 700 calories. And that's a high level of carbs. I don't want, when you're dealing with PCOS and you're dealing with insulin resistance, you don't want to cut out carbs. You want slow burning carbs.
Yeah.
Animal protein has that beautiful amino acid profile. You need protein to stabilize your blood sugar, to help create those amino acids, help you create neurotransmitters. They're important to the foundation for your hormones. They help in the healing of your gut. We need protein. And women that are on a plant-based diet, I think it's very interesting because I have a new client tomorrow I'm going to be working with, and she's been a vegan for 24 years and is having some serious health issues. And she's realizing now that she's got to incorporate protein in her diet. I have to make sure that I'm giving her hydrochloric acid.
Yeah.
Because when you cut animal protein out of your diet, you need less hydrochloric acid, but hydrochloric acid is a really great thing. It helps to kill bacteria in the gut.
Mm-hmm. So basically, when you're on a plant-dominant, plant-based lifestyle, you don't need
HCl
those acids to break things down. So you need to incorporate it back in.
And a lot of women that I work with, they're like, I don't eat animal. I feel so much better when I don't eat animal protein. And I'm like, that's because you're not digesting your food. And then there are a variety of other reasons why people have low stomach acid. So when I work with women that are not digesting, I'll introduce some hydrochloric acid. And I'll introduce the hydrochloric acid incrementally upward. I'll give them one tablet, and maybe I'll go tablets of 350, and then I'll go to 750, and then I'll incrementally go up until they feel a little burn in their chest. And then I back down one. Okay. And I'll do that for a while, and then they'll go, oh, I have this little warmth in my chest. Then I back down again. I'm trying to get the body to remember to make HCl.
Got it.
Very important. HCl is important to digest our food, kills bacteria in the gut. A lot of women that have constipation issues have low stomach acid. Women that have diarrhea, some of them have low stomach acid. I do a lot of stool testing to take the guessing out of it. It's important, just like bile is important in detoxing, helping to efficiently detox estrogens out of the body. We need pancreatic enzymes, but stomach acid, and I bring this up because I think it's really important. A lot of women will say, oh, I have this heartburn. I must be producing too much stomach acid. I'm like, no, what's happening is you're not producing enough. And you have what's called the LES valve, and it's a flap that sits on top of the stomach, between the esophagus and the stomach. I call it the lid on the washer.
Yeah.
So there can be a variety of reasons. Someone's eating something and maybe they have some gas, or they don't have enough stomach acid, so it doesn't register for that valve to shut. So it stays up, and then the stomach acid splashes upward.
Okay. And I think that it's fair because on my podcast, a lot of people have a plant dominant lifestyle. And when I say plant dominant, I don't mean vegan, and I don't mean only plant based.
And I was just going to get,
yeah.
And I don't mean to cut you off. Yeah, I think
no, you're great. We're excited about this. It's more a matter of having an abundance. And I think that having 70-80% of your lifestyle being whole, complete foods with maybe accessory proteins. For me, that might look like salmon and eggs. And if someday I want to incorporate venison or some type of animal protein, then I will do that for my health. Right now, I'm at a good space, but also I understand I don't want to be overdoing seafood, and for a bunch of other reasons. But if there are people who are, I think that it's fair to make this a PSA. If you are doing a plant dominant lifestyle for the benefits of, I don't know, longevity, let's say, just overall longevity in life, then you may still also be ignoring some of the underlying symptoms that maybe you're just too stubborn to say, hey, okay, maybe once in a while I'll add in animal proteins, even if it's right before your cycle, during your menstrual cycle.
Regarding protein, when I'm thinking about protein with people, I want to look at what percentage, like for me, I want to make sure that with my meals, I work out, that I'm getting 35 grams of protein, maybe 40
per meal.
So it depends on the person. So a really simple rule of thumb for me, I want to make sure you're getting a handful of protein when it comes to animal protein on your plate. That could be 5 ounces, that could be 6 ounces, it could be 8 ounces. We've demonized protein. Like, oh, if I eat too much protein, then it's going to, cause, it'll be a stressor on my kidneys. That's not true. The problem for most women is that they're deficient in protein. And it's not like you can have protein once a week. You need protein every single day. And I feel, so looking at a plate for me, if I look at a plate, I want to make sure that somebody with their meal, whether it be breakfast or lunch or dinner, I'm looking at 2 cups, maybe 3 cups of veggies with every meal. And I want to look at carbs and maybe that, slow burning carbs. And it depends on what it is, but like a half a cup, maybe 3/4 of a cup. And then 30% of the plate is protein. And then we add fat, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons
Like a thumb's
of a
worth is,
healthy,
yeah,
fats are good. We've demonized fats too. Fats do not make you fat. They
sure.
actually, every cell membrane is made out of fat,
Let
and
me
you need those omega-3s.
knowing the audience that we're listening to, they might think, oh my gosh, so now they're telling me that I need to eat animal proteins at
Yep.
every meal, every single day. And I think and this is for me, because I also want to know, it also isn't, hey, go to the grocery store and get $3 Tyson chicken breasts that have been pumped full
No.
of hormones. But I think that it makes sense to say, hey, integrate it slowly back in, especially if you're low on stomach acid and you start to notice that you can't process. But what are some options for people who maybe for moral reasons or religious reasons, maybe they don't do pork, maybe they don't do beef. What are
Yeah,
some
and
things to think about?
it's a really tricky. I always what I look at, it's not a question of what I want, it's a question
Mm-hmm.
of what my body needs.
Mm-hmm.
Lyra Keith was on my show, I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago. And she was she was a vegan for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it really compromised her health. And she had seen a practitioner of Chinese medicine, and he said, "You are so deficient." And she went out that day. I love this story. She wouldn't even bring it in her house. She got a plastic fork and a can of tuna. She ate it outside. She said, "Meg, the first moment I put that tuna in my mouth, I energetically felt a difference.
Mm.
It's like my body woke up."
And
So,
you don't want, that's what I mean about being so stubborn in your lifestyle that you ignore repercussions that may be coming from so much of one thing, as opposed to integrating different
well,
types of varieties
I
in.
follow principles of Chinese medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and Chinese medicine is always about balance. It's always been about fish and animal protein and a lot of vegetables and fresh fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And, looking at that Mediterranean diet, I I myself, I have, difficulty with gluten and dairy, and I try to cut that. I do not have that in my world,
Got it.
but I feel that there's such an abundance. You can also have a meal during the day that's got beans and grain.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if you're having issues with your period, if you're anemic, if you're, truly anemic, it's not about you taking supplements. The bioavailability of iron and B12 and B vitamins and zinc
Mm-hmm.
comes through food.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I want people to eat food and supplement with vitamins.
Yeah.
So we've demonized meat. And when I talk about meat, I'm talking pastured, grass fed, cold water fish.
There's a my boyfriend, he's when we first started dating, there was definitely not as much of an emphasis on what type of meat he was eating. He was definitely a
Oh, yeah.
carnivore, and I'm totally fine. He can do what he wants. But over the past 2 years, he has established a really beautiful relationship with a man who owns this gorgeous farm about 30 miles away, 40 miles away. He will help deliver eggs. He sees the chickens, sees the cows, knows what they're eating, knows all these things, and he only eats meat that he has seen where it comes from exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what we feed the dog. That's what he eats. And I think that he does eat less of it because it's higher quality, and he'll portion it out for his meals in that way. And so in the morning, he'll do a scoop of protein powder and oats and berries and chia seeds, all these things. And then later in the day, he's eating those high quality sources of animal protein.
But you want to make sure you're having enough protein with each meal. And I
Sure.
think that it's,
Mhm.
I think berries are fine. But, we look at traditional cultures, cereal became popular in the past century.
Mhm.
You look at European cultures, they were eating meat, they were eating savory meals. They had to go out to the fields, they had to work. I
Yeah.
find when I have people for breakfast do a stew or a chicken soup, and I get people that are ill, I'm trying to help them get better.
Yeah.
I find that with shakes sometimes it's people have a difficult time with shakes. They're not filling.
Sure.
They're
Sometimes
not.
people can have a tough time with that. I totally agree.
Yeah.
No matter what type of protein you're looking at, whether it's animal, plant, a protein powder, you're going to have a spectrum of ultra processed and not ultra processed, no matter where you're looking, what you're looking at. So I think that finding the highest quality within your means is the best option. And I want to go back to something. So
Sure.
you touched on PCOS, and when it comes to PCOS, I think a lot of people, and especially influencers or social media, everyone has 15 seconds to give their advice before people lose interest. So they're going to say the big controversial whatever. So there's gluten-free and dairy-free, which I think there's definitely something to that when it comes to PCOS. Can you talk about what's happening with gluten-free and dairy-free? Why is that significant? And are there any other types of foods that right off the bat get rid of?
Casein, I mean, dairy has casein, and that can exacerbate acne. Even if you don't have PCOS, it's the casein. Also, cow's milk has hormones in it. You know, milk is very, it can be difficult to digest. But once I take people off dairy, the influence of hormones and casein. When it comes to gluten, we literally do not have the enzymes to completely break down gluten. So for a lot of people that I'm working with, because I do stool testing, they have leaky gut issues. And what I test, one of the areas that I look at is zonulin. Zonulin tells me, is the gut leaky? Well, guess what happens? If your gut is leaky, that also means that your brain is leaky. So because gluten breaks that, gluten is inflammatory. So when you have leaky gut, you have the potential of leaky brain, and gluten can be a contributing factor to that.
Okay.
And it's inflammatory.
Yeah. And
it can be very inflammatory.
It's interesting though, because some people will say, I can't have some types of gluten, but I can have sourdough, or I can have, I don't know, some other type of super fermented gluten. Is there something to that? Is it the beneficial bacteria from the gluten?
We don't break down gluten.
Okay. Oh, you're like, okay, we don't break it down.
And also, if it is in any way commercial, you're ingesting glyphosates, and glyphosate can impact your thyroid, amongst other things. So anybody that's having autoimmune issues or leaky gut, and I'm going to put PCOS in this category, I just think we have a very difficult time breaking it down. Who doesn't love, I mean, I think one of the most difficult things that I ever gave up were bagels. I love bagels. But I would eat, I used to sit in Cobble Hill Park in Brooklyn. And on Saturday mornings, this is going back years ago, I would get the New York Times, I'd get a big coffee, and I'd get a bagel with butter. And after about 5 minutes, I would get so high and buzzed from the gluten. And then what would happen within an hour? I would crash.
Absolutely. There's nothing.
Oh man, the buzz.
Oh, I completely agree. And I'm fully looking forward to that crash over Christmas holiday. We're getting judge me all you want. We're getting cinnamon rolls, and I'm dipping it in coffee, and I'm doing it. And you know what? And I know I will feel it in an hour, but then it's just one of those times, like I'm aware of it.
You know, what I say to people when they're working with me and when holidays, do the best you can.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with women that have PCOS or autoimmune issues or colitis or anxiety and depression, and I'm seeing, and I look at the profile of their gut, the microbiome, I'm looking at, are they low in, because the stool test will tell me a lot. Are they low in pancreatic enzymes? Are they low in stomach acid? Are they breaking down fats? Are they deficient in short-chain fatty acids? Is there an overgrowth of bacteria? Do they have parasites? Are they detoxing estrogen? So if there's an elevation of an enzyme in the gut called beta-glucuronidase, women are not clearing estrogen. And women that have PCOS, they're getting this, high peak of estrogen, telling, the body is, the LH is screaming, ovulate, ovulate. The body doesn't ovulate, so it's not met with progesterone. So a lot of these women are very estrogen dominant, and I want to make sure that we efficiently help them detox that.
Yes.
Also, that women that have PMS, I want to make sure if they're getting tender breast, and they're getting a lot of gas and bloat, or if they're getting fibroids or passing clots, I want to make sure that they're clearing the estrogen that they do not need after their cycle. And I want to make sure they're balancing with progesterone.
In regards to PMS,
Mm-hmm.
this is a personal thing. I'll put myself
Yeah.
on the spot here. I am not as much struggling with acne anymore. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
happy about that, but I know that symptoms of PMS for me have gone so internally to the point where my luteal phase, the week before my period, I am so incredibly low. I mean, needing to be away from it's gotten worse and it's more and more severe. And I took a couple of different hormone panels and things like that. And it actually said that my estrogen was low in some areas.
I would
For
be looking
people,
at your diet.
well,
I'd be
that's
looking
so,
at caloric consumption.
mhm,
I'd be looking at how much protein you have.
mhm.
I'd be looking if you're brutally honest, are you
Sure.
eating enough? And if
Yes, over the past 2 months, I noticed my caloric intake was slightly lower
your
based on my
BMI
work
is
schedule.
probably too, it may be, I mean, I'm just going
Sure.
to throw this out, and this is to everyone here. I have to look at your BMI may be too low. Just like when the BMI for women during their reproductive years, I don't want to see women below 20% in body fat.
Mm-hmm.
To have a normal cycle, you need some body fat.
You need something. Yeah.
You need, when I see women that have a BMI of 30 or more, they're entering the realm of obesity. So what does that mean? The body's in a state of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to be comfortable and feel good about who they are. But if your body fat is too low, or if your body fat's too high, you're going to have problems.
You want to find homeostasis somewhere.
You want
Yeah.
to find balance. And the balance for me, I always strive with women because it's very delicate. I mean, one of the reasons, and I'll just pause right now, one of the reasons I've gotten into women's health, I had a terrible eating disorder in my teens and my 20s. I was anorexic and bulimic. I
Mm-hmm.
get it. Body image, dysmorphia, the whole bit. And I was very fortunate. I started dealing with my recovering, healing, not dealing or fixing, but healing my self-image from the inside out in therapy, good functional medicine doc. We're going back to the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I just had really good therapy, good nutritionist, good functional medicine MD, acupuncture, and I just started working on loving me and getting the nourishment and the nutrients that I needed and learning how to feel comfortable in my body. And I've had amazing therapists over the years, but I will put this out. Anne Bradney, God bless that woman.
Mm-hmm.
She did BioCore energetic work, and that changed my life. I learned how to feel comfortable in my body. So what came out of that is as I work with women now, decades later, I want to hold the space for women so that they can be the best mothers they can be to themselves, to give themselves what they need in terms of maybe what they didn't get growing up, to feel comfortable in their bodies. Mm-hmm. And we have these extremes that, anybody can be any weight. No, you want to be in a range that is healthy for you. Mm-hmm. If you're carrying too much weight, then you run the risk of diabetes and PCOS. I mean, what is the percentage? 1 out of 3 women with a BMI over 30 is in the category of for having PCOS. That's wild. That is wild. Yeah. So it can throw them over the edge. When I look at elevated BMI, women trying to get pregnant, very hard for them to get pregnant. Gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, hypertension. I don't want these things for women. Women that have low body fat, amenorrhea.
Yeah.
Bone density issues, anxiety. I mean, it goes on and on. It's balance. It's balance.
What are if someone is listening to this right now and they're thinking, okay, this is a lot of information. All I know is that I need to be consuming potentially less social media and eating
Oh God, yeah.
a little higher. I think we could all agree with that, but having maybe a higher caloric intake if you're feeling,
Mhm.
extreme lethargy, extreme PMS, looking at animal proteins. What would you recommend when someone is on birth control, but they're scared of getting off birth control? Maybe they've been on birth control for forever, but they want to get off, but they're also sexually active. And maybe condoms aren't, I know like beggars can't be
This is a
choosers,
real
but what are
tricky
some,
thing,
yeah.
and I say this is a real hard one.
Mhm. There is something about waking up in the morning, having your 32 ounces of room temperature water with a little bit of salt, and then knowing before you have your coffee, before the day really, really starts, there's this beautiful in between time where you drink your Organifi greens juice. Hey, if you're about to go to the gym and maybe you want a little pre workout, you can sip on your Organifi red juice. Those are two of some of my favorite products, especially for those interested in incorporating one simple hack into their daily wellness routine. The greens powder has adaptogens, it has wheat, barley grass, all of the different green components that you would want in your day to day. You're remineralizing, you're getting your essential nutrients, you're getting vitamins, and you are setting your immune system up and gut. You're setting it up for success. Who doesn't want that in the morning? Every morning, I do a large mason jar full of water and I do 3/4 of a scoop. I find that one full scoop is a little too much, half not quite enough. So, 3/4 of a scoop in a large mason glass full. I drink that every morning and I promise you, it's something where you might not recognize the day that you're taking it, how big of an impact it's making, but when you do it consistently and then you stop taking it, you will miss it. It is the most simple, delicious addition to your morning routine. I have been using the green apple flavor for the past month, and it's definitely my favorite. I've got to say, it trumps the original flavor. Love them both. This one is absolutely the best. You can go to Organifi.com, use the code HTH20 for 20% off of any of your orders. You can find some of my favorite products on there, like the protein, the Reds powder, or the green juice, of course. But for those who are looking for a last minute gift, trying to start the new year right, try the Organifi greens powder, Organifi.com /HTH for 20% off. Again, that is HTH for 20% off.
This is a real hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Birth control pill. Why do women do birth control? Women do birth control either to address, I'm going to break down the birth control themes.
Sure.
You have PCOS. We're going to put you on birth control so you can have a period. Okay.
It's like a fake period.
Women that have PCOS don't ovulate. So why would you put somebody on the birth control pill to reinforce the fact that they're not ovulating?
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to take care of PCOS. So anyone that works with me with PCOS in the very beginning, if they've been on the pill, I have them get off the pill because I want to start reestablishing hormone signaling. And I can't really do a blood panel involving their hormones for a few months because I'm not going to get a true read on testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and DHEA. Birth control pill for a lot of women that have PMS or is docs like, oh, you're having heavy bleeding, you have cramps, let's put you on the pill.
So symptom chasing.
It's just symptom, yeah, you're running after symptoms. PMS is the easiest thing to take care of on the planet. But what happens if these women that are having PMS are also maybe having a little depression and anxiety? You put them on birth control, it amplifies it. You're not, I mean, there's no, you have synthetic, you have chemicals that are mimicking hormones. You have progestins. Remember I said progesterone is very calming and soothing. It balances estrogen. You have progestins. They can lower your libido. When you're on the pill, you have a lower testosterone level. You need testosterone to have mojo.
Mm-hmm.
So what also happens on the pill, you have what's called a withdrawal bleed. You're not ovulating. So you don't have the ebb and flow of your natural estrogen and your natural progesterone leading up to ovulation. So what I break it down like this, and I like to share this, and I've been sharing it on podcasts, but I think it's a really great image. You look at your cycle, and it's the potential for a baby. You have the potential to have a child. It's also the potential during that cycle. What do you want to give birth to during that cycle? So you look at how estrogen and testosterone leads up to ovulation. So what happens about a week after you have your period, and I'm talking natural cycle, you will notice that you're like, I have a little more confidence, I have a little more joie de vivre, a little more oomph in my step, because your testosterone and estrogen is starting to rise. And then right around
That's
the
when
time
you're like working a little harder in the gym and you go take your group
yeah,
fitness
you
classes.
feel real good. Yeah, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. It's on the rise. You're like, oh, I have a little more, and I'm starting to feel a little more horny. Yeah, I'm feeling good now. So leading up, so you have this cycle, release of a follicle, potential baby, but it's also that creative energy, that joie de vivre. What do you want to create in the world? What do you want to do?
Mm.
And then the second half of the cycle, the progesterone kicks in. It's balancing. How do I put this out into the world? How do I focus on the things that I want? I'm creating a story here because if you can start looking at your cycle like this, it is so powerful. Sorry about that.
You can cuss.
But it is so extraordinary. And then you cultivate that. And then around the time of your bleed, you start feeling a little more introspective. And then when you bleed, the time of your period, you take a step back from the world. You don't have to go to the gym. Go stretch at home. Go for a nice long walk. Have a cup of tea. You don't have to keep pushing it. It's also a time to reflect on what was the past 4 weeks like? What can I do in my life to cultivate more creativity? What can I do to enhance my life? It's not a goal. It's a way of looking and a way of being in the world that you can utilize your cycle to allow you to create your journey in the world. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's your own individual wave that you ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when women have PMS around their period, do you notice that we have no filter? Or the filter lifts? I'm not saying. I mean, if you really let it rip, you'd let it rip.
Yeah.
I think it's because we have things within us that need to get out and be cleared. And I don't mean screaming at people.
We're about to spend, a week of our cycle going inward. So if our inward space is messy and we haven't released what we need to release in the week before, that's such a good point. So essentially the week after your period, when you're all happy and joyful and energetic, you are
creating space.
You're a visionary. And then the next week you are putting that vision to life. And then that third week you are thinking, okay, you're tweaking what you just put out. And then during that last time, and you're like tying up loose ends so that your next week you can be introspective. I love that.
And it's just this flow. But what I say to women is like, oh, if you're getting PMS at the time of your period, you can go, wow, you know what? This cycle, I wasn't getting enough veggies in, or I was skipping meals in my luteal phase. I want to pay attention to that next month. So it is a time of your bleed to say, what are the things that I can gently do to support me and be a good mom to me? When you're on the pill, women are getting cramps and they're getting PMS and they're getting bloat. I see a lot of depression. I see a lot of anxiety.
What about IUDs when we're talking about copper? Let's say someone's saying, hey, well, I don't want the hormones, but a copper IUD.
It's funny. I was at a conference over the summer and I brought that up and they're like, yeah, copper IUDs. And they were right. Your cervix is constantly inflamed. It's an irritant that obstructs sperm from reaching the follicle. So,
I picture it like an electric fence.
Yeah. And it's, again, we don't want inflammation in the body. So this is where women have to, they don't have to, but this is, maybe another conversation. Natural method, looking at the window during, and that's another, and I talk about it on
Totally.
podcast, is there is a window, I'm going to say for about a week, that you could get pregnant.
Yeah.
But why not know when you're ovulating? So,
So when you have your clients get off of whatever form
mhm,
of contraception they're using, let's say it's an
mhm,
IUD, I feel like those are becoming more and more popular, which I get lifestyle wise,
yeah.
like, and they work. If you don't want to have a baby,
Oh, yeah.
this is a great tool. What would you say? Because it still scares me that
Yeah.
I'm natural and I feel like I know my
Yeah.
body really well, but I mean, fuck, you're still waiting for that day that you get your period. Like, come on. So would you recommend tracking your cycle through
You can do
an
it with
app?
an app.
But would you also recommend supplementary? Because I still have a lot of friends who have tracked it really well through the app and then they got pregnant. Surprise. But because there's that longer period of time, would you recommend doing a thermometer as well? One of those
I
ovulation
mean, if you really
thermometers?
want to, you can do thermometer. You can check your cervical mucus.
Mm-hmm.
Something to remember, sperm can live inside of you for 5 days. So look at when you're having sex. Let's say hypothetically, you ovulate on day 12 and you have sex on what's 5 days? You can get pregnant.
Ridiculous.
I wish I could give you a magic wand. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really do. But I do find that birth control pill takes away women's libido.
Mm-hmm.
They're flat, they're depressed, and I want women to experience their hormones. So it's going to be, I have a lot of clients. I have family members that are, your age and older, nieces and nephews. Well, not the nephews, but the nieces. Um, and they're in their 30s. And, one in particular, she uses, she looks at her cervical mucus and she follows an app.
Mm-hmm.
She got pregnant with the IUD.
Oh,
She
Jesus.
was really upset. The
I'd be
Moreno
really
ring.
upset too.
Just to let you know. Yeah.
Um, okay, when you just mentioned 30, and I know we're running out of time, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
address this. When it comes to women in their 30s, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna turn 30 in March.
Mm-hmm.
It is that inner clock that everyone's like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Women are having kids later and later. There's so much modern technology. I love that. It's amazing. There's nothing that anyone can say that makes you completely stop thinking about your
Mm-hmm.
timeline and your egg health and things like that. What would you recommend to someone who is maybe not trying to have a kid right now, but within the next 2 to 3 to 4 years thinking about having a kid? Maybe they're in their early 30s, late 20s. Is there anything you would specifically do to support your body getting ready for that if you don't know your
Honestly,
specific egg
I would
count?
have them see someone like myself
Uh-huh.
and do a check-in.
Okay.
And I like for couples, not just everybody thinks it's just the woman. The man's like
Unless
50%.
you're single.
Yes, but you wish your donor too was doing this. I want to make sure that women detox and the men do, because autism is on the rise. So many things are on the rise. And again, getting back to what I said initially, we're going back 2009, 2011. I can't even remember when that test, 260 toxins. It is probably doubled. So I want to make sure that any couple or any woman that is trying to get pregnant, she has efficiently opened up her detox pathways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of testing. I test with women, and I want to say this: women with PCOS do not clear environmental chemicals and heavy metals in the same way as women with non-PCOS. What I say with these women, sometimes do the testing. Let's see where your levels are so we can clear this.
Okay. So as we're heading out, what are 2 diet tips that you would incorporate today? Something that simply people can do on their own.
Eat
Diet
a
and
lot of
lifestyle.
cooked cruciferous vegetables. I'm
Cooked
very much
cruciferous.
about eating cooked. We're in the winter months. So eat a lot of broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower and kale, cooked, cooked, cooked. Have protein. Protein is your friend. It is part of the building. It is the amino acids, the building blocks for your hormones, your endocrine system, your neurotransmitters, your gut. You need protein. And I probably eat more veggies than a lot of vegetarians.
Mhm.
So it's getting that balance and work. Work with a nutritionist. Have somebody educate you and show you how to eat properly. But I'm about getting protein in with every meal.
Okay.
And making sure, whether it's plant-based or animal or whatever, you're getting 30 grams of protein. I'm going to be conservative.
Okay. And
With
so,
each meal. And guess what will happen? You'll stop craving sugar. You'll
mhm.
stop having PMS and get healthy fats in your diet. Olive oil, ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil. Stay away from the seed oils.
I just did a whole episode on macadamia nuts, and those things
Yeah,
are
they're great.
beautiful. They're great.
Yeah, macadamia, walnuts, pistachio, really great stuff.
Yeah.
But get a lot of vegetables, get clean protein, get healthy fats in there, slow burning carbs, sweet potatoes, yams, beans. Beans are a carb in my world.
Mhm.
They're high fiber.
And then what would you say lifestyle wise, either if it's a supplement, if it's an at-home test they can do, what would be something accessible? Accessible.
If women are really concerned about, am I getting all the nutrients I need? Do a really good prenatal pack.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Any that
That's
you
what
recommend?
I say to women when they're in their 20s. Get a good, I love +1 prenatal by Metagenics. It is. I mean, Thurologic has a really good one, but get a good quality one.
Okay.
And don't do the Amazon stuff. It's really scary what's in Amazon products.
I agree with that. Get
your vitamin D levels checked. If a good probiotic that has lactobacillus and biobifidum or bacteria, you want a full rounded probiotic, and eat fermented vegetables. I'm not just talking about kombucha, because fermented vegetables, prebiotic, probiotic, help you detox estrogens. It's Mother Nature's probiotic.
You would be so proud of me. I used to make this it was during the springtime. Mm-hmm. I would make this avocado toast, and it would be sourdough. It's delicious. Sourdough, sure. Avocado, 2 pieces or 2 full fillets of sardines. And then I would do kimchi and red pepper flakes on top. And it was so
here's the thing.
What would you change?
The next time you do that, make sure you have 30 grams of protein.
Okay. So basically just eat that twice.
Amp it up. Amp up your protein.
That's fine.
But I also want to say that cruciferous vegetables are high. They help you detox estrogen.
Like cilantro in your smoothies. I feel like that's a big thing right now, is having a cilantro.
Well, in your smoothies. I could come back and talk to you about fulvic and humic acid, because fulvic and humic acid are 2 minerals that help you. They help you on a cellular level detox and also usher nutrients into the cells.
Okay, so next time you're on, we're going to be talking about detox pathways.
Yes, I'd like
which
to do
is
that.
going to lead to constipation. And we will also basically, this is just a brain dump of what people want to hear. And we'll get feedback from this episode, hear what more people want to hear about. And if they want to go more into excess hormones, estrogen, timeline, PCOS, whatever it is, let us know.
And when I work with my clients, I take a deep dive.
Good.
And I peel back the onion slowly.
Yes. How can people find you?
If you would like to reach me, you can reach me at megrichichi.com. And all my contact info is there. And that is megrichichi.com. If you are interested in PCOS, I have a program called PCOSrevolution.com. And I have a 4 and 6 month program, incredible success. I am very different when it comes to PCOS.
I am truly so excited, because I think that you offer such a nice perspective. And if anyone speaks to me, like, I wore a plant-based hat to the gym this morning, but I'm so open to other forms of healing methodologies, whatever actually works, and it isn't just shown to you based on aesthetics, I think is great. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here today. And sometimes, providing information like this, it may make us uncomfortable, but it's good to take a step back and go, is my body getting what it needs? And again, it's a question of what our body needs as opposed to what we want. And it's a
or what we're used to.
Or what we're used to. But sometimes our body is asking for something, and that's another story. Sometimes it may be you think you're craving for sweets. Your body's looking for energy. It's really protein and fat.
Yep. Completely agree.
Okay.
Well, I will be having some dark chocolate and eggs for dinner. Well, thank you so much. We will absolutely schedule you for a part 2 after this. And
I would love
I'm really excited to see what the listeners think of this episode.
Okay.
It's a little different. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. We will talk to you all next Thursday. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Hotter Than Health. This is our final episode before Christmas. If you are celebrating anything else, you got Hanukkah, we got Christmas, we got all sorts of amazing celebrations, whether you just use this weekend to kick it and you were chilling solo. I did that a couple Christmases ago and it was awesome. Whatever you're doing, I hope you spend some time reflecting, add a little gratitude up in there. You have some good food, good people, good times, good movement. Whatever you're doing, make it good. And I am so grateful for everyone listening, everyone who has supported, liked, shared, subscribed, sent a DM, or just sent good thoughts towards the podcast's way. I hope that in the new year we continue to provide you with more and more resources, more conversations, and even more segments and newness and offers so that you can live your best, healthiest life. Thank you for everything, and we will talk to you next Thursday.